All right, but today I am joined by Hannah. I am so thankful to have Hannah here to talk with us about her process using Hubly. How did it get started? Where are you now? I'll give Hannah a second here to go ahead and introduce herself, and then we will begin.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Dabbs Mendoza. I'm located in the Phoenix area. So I have been in the industry about 7 years. We have five financial advisors in our office and we have three admin. It wasn't always like that. At one point in time, we had five financial advisors and one admin, and that was a little bit chaotic. We've been using Hubly for about 2 years as our main like client service workflow catch-all system. It's been such a game changer, so I'm really excited to share with you all the workflows that I've built and kind of my experience in that.
Awesome. So 2 years, you grew your team. What was it that really made you guys decide to hire on two additional admins?
Um, we needed to. There was absolutely no way. It was at one point it was just me in the office, and that was never the plan. Was to flood me with paperwork and administrative work, and um, we just found ourselves with some turnover early on, and we knew that we needed to hire. So we were just trying to structure like what roles did we need to hire? Did we need an office manager? We needed client service. I have since moved into more of an operations capacity, so I'm doing less of the scheduling, less of the new account paperwork, more of the business development. Um, so it was just a matter of finding those right people.
Awesome. That's great that you were able to transition and get additional help. What's your tech stack currently look like in addition to Hubly?
Yeah, so I will say we have a Cambridge Investment Research as our broker dealer. So they are not self-clearing. We use Pershing and NFS as our main two custodians and a few other direct sponsor companies. Um, so with being on the independent side, they don't have their own really proprietary technology stack. Like they do have an internal system that we would put through compliance items, but we really had a lot of freedom in choosing what we wanted to use. So we, of course, have a CRM. So we have Redtail as our CRM. Um, we use Microsoft 365, so that has helped a lot in just making sure all of our client documents are on OneDrive. We use Microsoft Teams as our internal chat. And so before Hubly, that was kind of the system was somebody would just walk up to your desk or they would just Teams you and say like, do this, or is this done? What's the status? And so it was a lot of back and forth. A lot of things were being dropped, not necessarily because the admin weren't being efficient. It was just like I said, it was just chaos, and we were always playing catch up. A few other things we've kind of adopted along the way as we've been implementing workflows is Calendly. So now we have Calendly to help with the scheduling. We use Zapier. So if you haven't heard of Zapier, it is how do I describe it? It is a piece of technology that helps run automation. So it links like two things that don't normally speak to each other. So Calendly and Hubly don't normally speak to each other, but if you have Zapier right in the middle, that missing link, they push them together. So what else do we use? We have Precise FP as a way of helping us do the new client onboarding process as like a data gathering tool. So those are probably a few other things that I'm not thinking of that are here and there, but that's our main tech stack.
Awesome. And then you have to get everything in Cambridge Click and
Yep.
got it. Awesome. Well, what was your starting point like with Hubly? Was it hard to hit the ground running? What did that process really look like?
Yeah, so well, this current group of advisors that I'm with has been using it for 2 years. I first kind of discovered Hubly, I want to say in 2019, 2020. So I've known about it for a while. When it was first getting started, I was helping another financial, just a solo advisor set up his practice, and he really wanted to use this with his admin. So I helped him set that up. So I'd kind of been through that setup process before. That advisor was very detail oriented and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He just needed me to push the buttons to do it. So I went off some of that experience, but with this new office, the first thing I do whenever I build a new workflow is I will just get out a piece of paper or a whiteboard and I just write down all the steps, all the processes, create a flow chart. I have lots and lots of flow charts in our office. All the admin are familiar with that. Where I'll sketch out like, okay, this is step one, step two. If the client signs, physically it's this way. If it goes e-signature, it goes this way. And then I started circling and highlighting where the stopping points were. Like, where is the bottleneck, or it's usually we're waiting for the client to sign. Maybe they're on vacation or whatever the situation. So they haven't signed their paperwork. Maybe we've submitted the paperwork, but we're waiting for the custodian to process it. Or maybe we're just waiting for funding to come through. So those are like the natural stopping points. And so that's how I started separating out the different stages of our workflow.
Really great. Yeah. So I bet at first it almost looks like word vomit of just throwing it all down, but then kind of adding order to chaos and figuring it out. Did you add the admins into the process as well to get their buy-in, or the advisors? What does that look like?
Yeah, so when I first created Hubly, we didn't have other admins, so I don't have other people to collaborate with necessarily, but since hiring more administrative staff, there's definitely a group collaboration here. Some people are a little more involved on the building of workflows, and some of our staff, they just tell me what to do or what do I need to know. But the more involved ones are great because now it's not just me thinking like, I think this is best if we put a task here or we do it this way, because I have somebody else to bounce ideas off of. So, and the advisors, they just give us high level, like, just tell me when I need to go place a trade. And so I'm like, yep, that's already included.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to be able to protect your time that way and know that things are going to get done and not have to refer back to handwriting to kind of deploy off all of those tasks or to-do items. So that's really great. I know I'm a visual person. Do you want to jump into your system and kind of show us around, show us what works, what's in action right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
All right, I see Hubly, and the first one I see is new client onboarding.
Yes. So here, I'm going to blink out the Hubly for just a second here. Oh. So I have set up these views. If you're not familiar with Hubly, it's kind of broken down into these blank spaces, and you can create views, which are just all these different workflow cards, right? So you have the client card, and then the column right here is the workflow. So the views that I have set up are really on the left-hand side here based on the client life cycle. So from start to finish, like, what is our client's experience? So usually they're starting out as a prospect or a lead. And so we have a view right here that goes through the whole prospecting phase. So we have one of our financial advisors that does more prospecting, or majority of it in the office. Let me see if I can click on that. Yep. So this was designed originally with keeping in mind that if we wanted to use like Smart Vestor Pro or Smart Asset, like a lead generation program, that's what this was really designed to do, so that we were following up and following the process that that advisor had for us. So, and then if we win that account over and we have a new client to onboard, it jumps into, this is really our main view, our main process here, which is client onboarding and new accounts. That's what this is. So the client onboarding is one workflow here. And so in Hubly, you have each of these different workflows, which is a set of tasks, right? Like one thing you need to do. when a workflow gets too lengthy, it becomes a process. That's kind of the Hubbly terminology. So to help everyone understand what was just a standalone workflow and what was a process that was linked together, I started numbering these. So this is a process, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So when you finish 1, they need to move over to 2. And the nice thing about Hubbly is that it automatically pushes it and knows that this is a process. And so it'll push it from 1 to 2. And it goes to 3, 4, 5, 6. And I can go more in depth too on this new accounts and paperwork process. I'll just jump through the other views that I have too. So great, they got onboarded, their very first investment account with us got funded. They're now an active client. So they may have client service workflows, just ongoing maintenance. So they want a distribution, they want to set up an ACH, or we send them a birthday card. These are all these standalone workflows that are not linked in a process. They're just one-off things that we do for clients. And then about once a year, maybe twice a year, depending on the client, we will do a client annual review. And we are currently using the surge method. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is. It's when you clump all of your client meetings into a short time frame. So you are being proactive about it. They know when to expect it. So we'll do like a fall and a spring surge, and we just knock out all of our client meetings. This is where all the automation happens, right? So this is where I have everything linked to Calendly. If a client schedules in Calendly, then they're automatically, using the Zapier connection, going to show up in the client review initial prep work. And I think I have that set to 2 weeks out. So 2 weeks before their meeting date, and it already knows the meeting date. It's already put the meeting date into their Redtail contact and into Hubbly, because Redtail and Hubbly speak to each other, or whatever CRM you're using. So it knows their next meeting date. It puts them in here. It will assign them all of the tasks. When I say them, it assigns the advisor and the admin all of the tasks that they would need to do 2 weeks out, and then automatically shows up 1 week out, the day of, and then after the meeting has concluded. So that has been huge in our office, just having those follow-up tasks already pre-assigned and knowing what we need to do. Because how many times do you see an advisor like do a client meeting, and as an admin, we're chasing them down, like, did you take notes? Do they need to open a new account? What do we need to do next? And then that kind of gets forgotten.
So what I'm hearing is, it might be the fall surge time. You cast the net over all your clients, send them a Calendly link. They'll schedule their own preferred date and time, and then that'll automatically create them into that initial prep workflow, and then the date will also be included.
Yes. Yep, that's correct.
That's awesome. And how do you know when a client didn't schedule? Like if you have 100 that you're scheduling, 99 scheduled, how do you know if that one didn't?
That is a great question. So I don't know the specific answer here, because I have stepped away from being the person who does that. When we're sending it out, we do have like a list of the clients that we want to schedule. So our admin would probably keep some sort of list, either if it's in Redtail or if it's an Excel sheet. They're keeping that, and then they're cross-referencing that with Calendly to say like, okay, this person's scheduled, like great, check that off. We do weekly team meetings, so that also really helps to be like, okay, like what clients do we still need to meet with? We're trying right now to use Hubbly more so in our weekly team meetings versus just separating out, like, we're going to discuss what we want to do, and then Hubbly is just something that we use. We're trying to push those together so that we can, in real time, we're talking about a client needing to schedule, we're plugging them in to a workflow. So those tasks are assigned right then and there.
Got it. Really nice. And then visually, you can see, are there some laggers that are still in that initial part, or did everyone move through smoothly?
Yes, yes. And I do know there are some other systems that can help with tracking that. We, for our marketing, use Levitate. It's a newsletter type service that can send one-off emails or email blasts or marketing event RSVP invitations. And so they do have a way of tracking whether or not clients are clicking open an email and things like that. So
Really nice. And I love the birthdays. You guys have a process in place for birthdays, for the regular client servicing view. That was really nice. What have you used from a template, and what did you kind of one-off create on your own? I noticed on the prospect view there was prospect week 1, 2, 3, 4, where that didn't maybe just come out of the box with Hubly, and you maybe had to add that in yourself.
yes, so that for the prospect workflow, I want to say I got that from an advisor I used to work for who was very involved with the Dave Ramsey program. So they had this whole system on when they got a lead from Dave Ramsey that was looking for a financial advisor in our area. They had a 4-week campaign, and every week they would call, compliantly text, or email that prospect. If they didn't hear a response, or maybe they were trying to schedule the next week, they would do it. And by the 4th week, if they tried 4 times and they couldn't get a hold of them or they weren't interested, then we would take them off the list. So that's where that one came from, and that was very custom built with that process in mind. But if we go back over to the new accounts and paperwork process, that is one where I started to build this based on Hubly has a lot of out-of-the-box templates, right? So there's this button that says create workflow. And I will say that advisors got very confused about create workflow because they thought it meant assign my admin to do something. But
Uh,
really, it is creating a brand new workflow, not just if you wanted to assign somebody, you would just add the client into that workflow. So there's new or from template. So I started with the from template here, and you can see Hubly has all these great workflows, and I would go and I would kind of install that, look at it, make a ton of edits to that, and maybe copy it over to our own. If we were completely starting from scratch, it might make sense just to do a new one, but that's how I started this new accounts paperwork one, and it really just kind of took life from there and became our own with the custodians we were using with very specific things to our broker dealer. So
Yeah, and that's something to really understand is that workflows do require that front end work, right? If you do dedicate those resources and that time to do that front end work, then in the moment it's really successful. And no matter what, you have to inject your secret sauce. You know, you might have a different custodian setup, a different tech stack, a different
mhm.
process that you're going through with prospects, with clients. So it is important to kind of inject your own secret sauce in there, and that's always going to be, part of the process.
Yes, it's definitely something. And I will say, um, if any of you are looking at getting Hubly, I think there's a reason that they don't just sell this to solo financial professionals, one advisor. They want it to be a team, meaning at least one advisor, one admin, or a team of advisors and a team of admin, because they need somebody that's capable of going in and maintaining these workflows. It is very hard, near impossible, to keep up with this system if you have a 75-year-old advisor who thinks it looks really pretty but has no idea how to create a workflow. They're not going to get the most out of this.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It definitely is a living, breathing process. It's going to continue to change as your office dynamics change, as the industry changes. So it does kind of require that consistent follow-up with it.
Yeah, it does. And we're always making small improvements, pretty much every week, maybe every month, as the
Okay.
industry changes and as forms get updated all the time. Our compliance department, their disclosures requirements are changing. So one thing I've been playing around with, is a new feature in Hubly. So when we are assigned as admin to go and open a new account, the advisor is dropping in a client here by saying add client. So blur it out. So I am hoping I'm typing in the right one here without seeing the full name. But I'm going to add this client in here. Let's see, and it goes all the way to the bottom. So we've chosen to do oldest on top, so we don't forget about those ones, and newest on bottom. So when we go down to the bottom here, the very first task is that they will fill out a form. So they would check, the advisor would check this box, and they would tell us, okay, who's the sponsor company going to be? So I just added myself as an example. So let's say I want to open a American Funds 529 plan. So that's going to be American Funds, commission, and the registration type will be individual 529. And these questions here that we put in the form are designed so that the advisor, their one task is going to be to fill out this form. Every other task in this workflow is going to be for the admin to complete, but they need to know this information to go and do the rest of it. And let's just say it's going to be a check. Let's just say $500. And what else do I need to put? Risk tolerance is a requirement. Beneficiary info. So let's say Hannah's child name. And we're going to save that. Now you'll notice it happened really quick, but there were a lot more tasks that just disappeared. It now knows based on that form what tasks are relevant. So it took off anything that was regarding like transfer paperwork. And it gave me this task here at the bottom that says generate paperwork AMF 529. So when I click on the details, it tells us all the required disclosures and forms related to that type of account. So that's a really cool new feature that Hubly, I think, just released, where you can filter the task based on the form answer.
Yeah, that's really fancy. And that took maybe the advisor 90 seconds to go through that initial form, fill it out, and then everything is deployed appropriately.
Yeah, I see a question in the chat about how do you share the workflows with Hubly as a partner so we can use them. I have worked with Hubly as a partner, so I work for an OSJ supervisor's office. So we have about 80 advisors across the country, and they're all under the same broker-dealer. So we have released all of our workflows within our OSJ, within our branch for those 80 advisors. And we've had conversations with Hubly about doing it broker-dealer wide, and I've given them full permission to like take some of my ideas. And I think they've kind of taken bits and pieces here, but I know they've taken out some of the specific things I have regarding like Cambridge being our broker-dealer. So if the task is I need to call Cambridge, like they're not going to put that in their workflows, but.
Yeah, and there also is that refer a friend option. There's like a button that says refer a friend, and that is a way to share workflows as well and kind of get going so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can share them amongst each other.
Yeah. So
I had a question about bottlenecks. Have you seen any bottlenecks in this where maybe someone is consistently not completing and then the workflow kind of stops there until someone moves on with the task?
that does happen, yes. For the advisors, I will also say, backing up like how we use this, because advisors really do not like to be bogged down with paperwork or details when it comes to this administrative stuff, right? So all these different views that I showed you and all these different workflows, it's a lot. Even this is a lot for the advisors to look at. They're not going to sit here and click through and see where everything is at. So what I tell the advisors is every day check your hub feed. If you could do one thing, just log into Hubly and check your hub feed, which is this little bar right here. And let me go to one of our advisors. So I'll go to Jack and I will just pick on him for a second. I know he has done all of these tasks and he has not marked them off. So he probably isn't checking it daily. But if he were, those would all be checked off. Or I, as the admin, since I do know that he did this, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to complete it for him. So when the entire team is keeping up with the hub feed and these are like the must do things or things waiting on the advisor, then that kind of helps reduce the bottleneck. The other thing you'll notice is with the, let's see here, workflow, you have the advisor here, and then we have our client service rep right here, and it's the same person for a lot of these tasks. And that's not necessarily because she's doing all of them, although she is doing a lot of them. That's the person that kind of knows what's going on. And so if she's not the one doing it, she's getting on the advisor to do it, or she's reassigning it to another team member. And that's just how we've found it to work best on our team.
Wow, love that. And when you were building out the forms and you're making it adapt based on that filter of what was chosen in the form, did you take advantage of the consulting with Hubly, or did you kind of just stay up to date on the updates that are released and see that that was newly released and added that to your process?
Yeah, so there used to be a button up here. I don't know if it's still here that says suggest a feature. Maybe it's right here. So you click on your name and it says suggest a feature. So I've clicked that button quite a few times. There's already some stuff that I've suggested that they've worked on, and the conditional task was one of those things. So as they do that, they do a pretty good job of announcing all the new releases in this lightning bolt. So I always make sure that I'm reading that and then I play around with it. And I'm like, is this something that could improve our workflow? Like with the generate paperwork one, we did not used to have that feature where it could tell what type of account it was and who the custodian was. So we used to just say, generate paperwork, go ask Hannah what paperwork, or generate paperwork, and then you had to figure it out or reference our operations manual in Word. So it's improving. Yeah.
Wow, what an enhancement then. That's like so many questions that didn't have to get filtered to you of like, hey, I need to check with you what paperwork is needed.
Yeah. Um, I saw a question in here, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding it fully. Have you implemented conditional task triggering other workflows? If so, where have you seen this to be most useful? If I'm understanding it correct, and I wish this was a feature that it's not yet, it would be that there's a conditional task later on in the workflow or in a different workflow based on another one. And feel free to respond in the chat if I'm not understanding that. So for example, in the generate paperwork workflow here, if I'm saying that this is a American Funds 529 plan and it's going to be funded with a check, I later have a task in the funding workflow that will say call previous firm to initiate a rollover if applicable. That task probably could just be eliminated if it were smart enough, if they connected back and it knew that it wasn't. So for now, we just kind of anything that's if applicable is there, rather than having to refill out on stage 3, 4, 5, 6. We don't want to have to say again that this was this type of account. This is so what we do is we rename the workflow. So you'll notice some that say like IRA rollover, Jackson annuity, and then as it moves along in the process, we keep that naming convention. So later on, if I were to open this account, sign it, submit it, when we get to funding, it would say my name and it would say American Funds 529. So then I would just kind of at a glance know that I could delete the rollover task. That makes sense.
Really great. And then everything as you add those comments is going into Redtail and being saved as notes for history.
Yes, so that's the other thing that we use. Oh, no, we don't save every single task as a history. We've chosen not to do that. We have so many tasks.
Okay.
We didn't want to put like, every little thing like generated paperwork, sent DocuSign. Like we didn't feel that our Redtail needed that level of detail. We do have on the um, client review process side a task. So we use Docs as a meeting note taker majority of the time. That's another AI feature that we have. And so there will be a follow-up task immediately following the client's annual review meeting that would be for the advisor to go clean up their notes. And then as soon as that's completed, the admin will go in and copy those notes over to Redtail.
Got it. Andrew's asking, would be interested to hear more about the flow of the zaps from Calendly to Hubly. What's the trigger there? The meeting/appointment being scheduled, and who does the scheduling? And is it the client or the admin? And how does Redtail fit in there?
Yes. So in Calendly, we have it set so there's different calendar event types, right? Like there might be a prospect meeting that's a intro call that's 30 minutes. Although we don't have the prospect say prospect meeting, it may just say intro call with advisor's name or team of advisors. But we have hidden tasks or hidden events in Calendly, right? So we try not to just generally just send out all of the available meeting types to our clients. But when we're doing that initial surge prep email where we're sending out and saying, hey, it's time for your annual review, please click this link. And that link is a calendar invite that is specific to that surge cycle. So it only lets them book maybe the next 60 to 90 days out. And it has a specific name. So it might say client annual review dash advisor's name, client name. And so that is the trigger. So if a client schedules in Calendly and they're using that name, not just intro meeting or not just meeting, like it has to say review meeting. That's the key word there, review meeting. Then automatically add the date as the next meeting date to Redtail as a meeting type. And it pulls the correct contact based on the client's email address. So the client's email address should match their Redtail contact that they're scheduling with. So, and then that is the trigger in Hubly. Let me see if it'll let me show. So in Hubly, it's going to say clients with, they must be an active client, will be added 2 weeks before their next meeting type if the type of meeting is a review meeting. So really it is Calendly to Redtail, and then Hubly pulls from Redtail for this specific workflow. So who does the scheduling? So the client can, so we send out the mass email, right? And the tech savvy, the younger clients, they usually click the link and schedule. And then maybe a week or two later, we'll call them. There's lots of clients who just don't want to do it that way. They just want to hear somebody call them. And we have our admin call and book them over the phone, but the admin is clicking the Calendly link. So it's still going through and automatically being added to this workflow. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that was so helpful. Thank you. And the prospect meeting view or the prospect Hubly view, are you guys using that for your team meeting, like a sales meeting type of thing? See what's in the pipeline and see if you need to hit the field, do more prospecting, things like that?
We don't right now. Something that we're kind of exploring is separating out the term prospect and lead. So a lead is more of a Dave Ramsey or Smart Investor Pro or somebody who clicked on our website or reads our newsletter. right? So not somebody we already have a relationship with, whereas a prospect is somebody that maybe it's a client's child or sister, whoever that we're currently engaged with and having a conversation, but they have not yet told us whether or not they want to work with us. So I may go here and rebrand all this and say, and just change it to lead. Um, and that's not something that we go through in our team meeting, but we do go through prospects. We kind of just list those off. We don't really have that in Hubly yet, so that's definitely room for improvement. And we just discuss where is this person at. And as soon as that person is ready to start the onboarding process, like this person here is a prospect who has not yet opened an investment account but would like to, then we're going to drop them in here.
Ah, got it. Really nice. Yeah, and look at we're making continuous improvement here by maybe renaming it in the future.
Mhm.
What about reports? Do you dabble in those reports? Is anything helpful in those insights?
I was looking at that the other day. Let me see if I can bring it up and if it doesn't give too much info. We do like weekly activity. So I was looking at this from a, one of the hardest things I think is evaluating our admins, let's say productivity. It's hard to give them metrics, especially when we do our annual reviews, our employee reviews. Generally, we know if an employee is doing well or they're not, or they have room for improvement in some area. But it's very, very hard to quantify, like how many people did you call? How many accounts did you help open? But this is a small way for us to see if we're evenly allocating the work amongst our team of 3 admins. So I was down here earlier. I'm in the right one. Go to task view. I was in here earlier and I happened to see that one of our admin was taking on over 60% of the client service tasks. This is not the active workflows.
Yeah, that's helpful to make those informed business decisions.
So I kind of was asking, I was like, okay, they work it's not really the view I was wanting here. So I do still have to play around with it and better understand like how to use this tool. A snapshot though, where I was seeing like, okay, this one person's doing more than the others. So I went back and I asked the team, I was like, is it because this other person is doing tasks that are not in Hubly? They both work at the same number of hours and they are supposed to be splitting the client service workload 50-50. So is it that maybe this one person needs help or what's going on here? So that was very informative to see that.
Wow, I love that. And that's just things that would go unnoticed if you
Mhm.
were given a graph right there to look at or quantify it with those numbers.
Let's see which one it was. I think, oh, user task activity. That might be what it was. That breaks it
Oh,
down by user. And I will say the advisors, they shouldn't be doing 50% of the work. Here we go. Tasks completed by users by month. That's the one that I was kind of looking at. So you can see in blue here that this person is doing significantly more. But the 2%, this pink one, is an advisor. Um, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. The advisors are not supposed to be in
yeah.
house doing all the tasks. They should be at 1 to 2% because they should be in there at least giving tasks. But um, yeah, this uneven split, I'm like, wow, she's doing a lot of work. So
Mhm. That's awesome. What a cool little insight. Preston's asking, what are you doing for one-off tasks that don't necessarily fit a workflow? For example, callback, review cash at an account, check in on in X amount of weeks, etc. We are currently using a reminder workflow and manually typing in the one-off tasks, but curious if there was a better solution.
yeah, so the one-off tasks. I would say if you're doing it over and over again, then it's not really a one-off task, right? So if you I'll go to our client service workflow. Let's see if we have a good example of this. Let's see if it's going to let me scroll at the bottom. There we go.
Yeah, and that's hard. It's kind of like you love Hubly so much, you want every task to be in there, and it's kind of like, what do we put where and why, with your
Yeah, I
CRM
actually
as
do
well.
that's a good point. I actually do have more than this, but I have it filtered only by active. So if there's no tasks in there, then it's not going to show on this workflow right here. So I guess I don't have a perfect example of that, but if you are checking, um, so if you are checking like the amount of cash in an account every single month, maybe because they need to meet the monthly fees, then I would say there are different ways when you build a workflow. I'll go into the settings here that you can have things automatically added. So you could say if you tagged every single client that had an account like that, where you would need to manually go in and check for cash, you had that tagged, you can have a automation rule that said once a month, if this client has this tag, add them to this workflow. So that's one way to do it. If it truly is not a one-off task and you find yourself doing it over and over. But if it's something very rare or just maybe not related to client service workflows traditionally, we do have this miscellaneous task where each person has, I don't know why this one's showing again. Each person has a to-do list, and that's just a running like random things like this. So for Joe, it says 2025 contributions. So he's got to check on somebody's 2025 contributions. It doesn't say the client's name, so I'm not really sure who he's referring to, but he knows, and it's kind of just in there for him. And if
Yeah.
it were something that needed more description, he would put a description in there. So that's been our workaround. I also put our like new employee onboarding, compliance advertising submissions, holiday party reminders, like event stuff could go in here. Just all those things that don't fit into the traditional client service workflow.
That's
So
cool. And, if Joe goes on vacation, he's not like, hey, go to my desk and look at this, yellow pad and let me
yeah,
know what I needed to do while I was out, or can you do it while I'm out?
right, right. And these can each link back to the client card. I guess I didn't see this here. It even has the client's name here. So the 2025 contributions, that's specific to that client. If it's something that's not specific to a client, then we'll put it under our own contact card because we all have, a contact card. So um, like new employee, I might put the actual new employee as a contact in Redtail and then all their different tasks they need to do. So
Got it.
I don't know if that's a better solution as the question is asking, but I will say it is very important to put a reminder on this because if you're using a to-do list like this or miscellaneous, if you don't have this little reminder set, it gets very easily overlooked and it doesn't filter into the advisor's hub feed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's like it's like if the tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it
mhm.
fall? So you have to make sure you put that reminder on. David said there's a trick to following up to prospects that sign up somewhere and then ghost you. I'm happy to share. Oh, David, yeah, I would be interested to hear that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then for Zox, is it picking up your meeting information, pushing it to Redtail, and then Redtail's doing stuff in Hubly, or not necessarily?
It's kind of one or the other. So if we before we had Zox in the client review process, I'll hop over there for a minute. Let me see if it is going to show us so the meeting gets completed and then it pushes over to follow up. So we used to have a task that would say log meeting notes, and then you would go into the comments here, link to the notes in Redtail. So then we would go here, or you could go to Redtail, but why jump over to Redtail when you can do majority of the work in Hubly? Also, then we would add the comment, which would add the meeting note here. So since using Zox, we don't have that step. We process the Zoc notes and push it from Zox to Redtail, which then in
Oh,
turn imports back to Hubly. So it's in all three
nice.
places. Yeah.
Wow. And CRMs are always being competitive. If it ever came to the point of, we needed to switch CRMs, do you feel comfortable having everything in Hubly so that way you don't have to worry about workflows transferring over to the next CRM that you would have chose kind of thing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yes, my understanding is that all of the workflows, it took me months to set up all these workflows from scratch in the beginning.
Yeah.
All of those workflows would still be there, and we would simply just reconfigure the client card would then we'd pull everything from Redtail to, like, if we switch to Wealthbox, we would do that. Um, they have a merge tool. I'm sure all CRMs have this where you could export the information in your old CRM, import it into the new one, so you're not losing contact info or notes or any of that history. So if we did merge it over, then we'd pretty much just relink each contact card where they left off, and the task might be gone, but it would be a very seamless process.
Yeah, that's great. Kendall's saying, I can't find the form on the tasks that you mentioned. Is this a feature that I need to turn on, or is it on a different plan? I
Yeah,
think that was when the advisor needed to fill out what account it
yeah,
was.
I don't think so, but I can show you how I added it. So when you're in the generate, or when you're in a workflow and you hit the three little dots and you're going to edit the workflow right here. So you're now in this edit mode. I made the very first task fill out the form. And I think it's important that it is the first task if you're going to use the conditionals later on. So we're going to click this little button right here. But if it were just like, let me do example, like another new form, let's just call it that. Then you have to add the task first. So you're gonna add the task, and then the button appears, the clipboard. It doesn't
Mhm.
show when you're creating the task. You have to do it afterwards. And you can name the form like beneficiary info and just say, what's the name of the beneficiary. So hopefully that helps.
So helpful. Thank you so much, Hannah. Well, I know we covered so much today in regards to kind of how your office is set up, what kind of zaps are set up, all of your tech stack information. So thank you so much for going through everything with us. And Kendall says thanks as well.
Yeah, no problem. And yes, it is being recorded. I saw that was the question. So um, feel free to rewatch, slow down, and see some of the workflow settings in there. I don't know, Nora, there was a question earlier on about sharing these workflows. I have no problem doing like the refer a friend where you can push. So I can enter an email address. So maybe if you send Nora your email address, and she can pass along a list to me and I can put those in here and then just start sharing these processes. So we have a lot of processes, but the main one is definitely this new account paperwork process or the client service. Like some of those can be shared that way. So maybe that's how we do
That
it.
is, yeah, that is so generous of you, Hannah. I think that's a great idea. If you message in, even there's a chat icon on the bottom right hand corner, you can say that you watched the webinar and you want to share your email to get those workflows shared over. I can then send that list to Hannah and she can put them into that list and go ahead and get those over. So generous. What a great bonus for being part of the session today. I hope it added some value to your office and you were able to pick up some things. And Hannah, I would love to connect again and see just where things have improved and kind of see how these are actual living, breathing processes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.